Hello, and welcome to Spirit Travels, where we narrate the extraordinary experiences of people who have glimpsed the other side of death. My name is Maureen, and I will be your narrator on this journey. If you enjoy this content, please make sure to like and subscribe to support our channel. Now let's begin. Today's NDE is by Deanna. Throughout the week of September 1st, 2018, I had an uncomfortable feeling in my stomach. I took antacids, laxatives, baking soda, and water, and it got continually worse. I was bloated and not well. Toward the end of the week, I could only lay on my right side to sleep. On the night of the September 7th, I was finding it hard to breathe and spent the night sleeping while standing up and leaning over the kitchen counter. I found it more and more difficult to breathe and asked my husband to take me to the emergency room. My son is a paramedic in our city, and I thought that I had a bowel blockage and didn't want to cause a medic unit to come to the house for something like that. As we went to the hospital, I became greatly distressed with my breathing and was grasping for air. I was very afraid. When we got to the hospital, I couldn't get out of the car and had to run out of air in my lungs. The hospital staff ran to the car, put me in a wheelchair, and brought me straight into the emergency room. I couldn't catch my breath because I couldn't get air into my lungs. I started to panic. As I was on the gurney, about 6 or 7 nurses and doctors and medical technicians were all around me. They started to undress me and attach IVs to my body. Then I was gone. In less than a blink of an eye, I was in the emergency room. Then I found myself immediately in a room that was made of stone walls. The closest I can describe this is a great hall in a medieval castle. There was a long wooden table in the middle of the room. On the table were 3 white plates, one on either side of the table and one at the end of the table. The settings were completed by eating utensils and goblets. There was no food on the table. The table was lit with sconces burning from on the walls. I came face to face with our Lord Jesus Christ, sitting at the head of the table and facing me. He didn't say a word. As I looked at him, I realized I could perfectly see every hair on his beard and head. He was wearing a plain white robe. He looked just like the picture my grandmother had that hung in her home when I was growing up. Jesus had dark hair, a beard, and kind eyes. Once I realized I could see perfectly, I took a big breath and realized I could breathe wonderfully too. I felt no pain either. I looked over Jesus' left shoulder to a door. The door looked like a wooden swinging door at a restaurant. Coming through the door was my father, my sweet dad, who died many years before at the age of 57 from a massive heart attack in his sleep. He looked so amazing. He was beautiful, glowing, happy, and restored to good health. When my eyes locked onto his, I felt the most amazing feeling of love. I have never felt that kind of love on earth from anyone. I felt love wash over me and over every single cell in my body all at once. The light had the most amazing pure love with light and warmth to it. As he came through the door, I glimpsed a glowing, bright light behind the door. This was secondary to seeing my father. I was about to scream, "Dad!" and run to embrace him, but Jesus put up his palm to me and said kindly but very firmly, "Not now. Go back." Jesus never spoke with his mouth. but it was loud and clear in my head. I instantly went back to my body. I found myself about to be put into a CAT scan machine and completely unable to breathe. I was trying to pull at the tech and was holding my chest. He said, "Just 1 more minute, honey, we're almost done." Then I passed out. When I woke up a little over a day later, I was in the cardiac intensive care unit and couldn't remember why I was there. I don't remember being taken there. I just woke up there. I had some sort of mask on my face for oxygen and IV needles in my ankles, hands, and the crook of my arm. My family was all around me, and they told me that I had heart failure. My heart, kidneys, and lungs had started to fail. They told me the cardiologist on call said if I had gotten there 10 minutes later, I wouldn't have made it. I was in shock. I thought I had a blockage in my stomach. In my wildest dreams, I would have never thought that I would have had heart failure. I was only 58, in very good health, and never even had surgery. On September 11th, they did a cardiac catheterization through the groin. The doctor told me that it was an electrical issue and not a plumbing one. I was diagnosed with heart failure, left bundle branch block, and pulmonary hypertension. I have since had an ICD pacemaker and defibrillator put in to regulate my heartbeats, and I'm doing really well. I don't have pulmonary hypertension anymore. There's so much more to this experience since I came face to face with my dad and Jesus. I feel like what happened after that was truly amazing, and I would like to share it. As my 4 children, ages 26 to 39, and my husband gathered around my hospital bed, they told me that 2 doctors had argued about whether to intubate me or use the oxygen machine with the mask over my face. The doctor that didn't want to intubate me in the emergency room won the argument. He later told me it was because once you're intubated one time, if you ever have to be intubated again, that your lungs get very weak. I was grateful that he had been able to get me back with oxygen and loads of diuretics. They flushed about 15 pounds of fluid from around my heart, lungs, and kidneys so that I can function again. While my family was gathered around my bed, crying and scared, I felt the most unusual peace that enveloped me for almost 8 months after the experience. This was something I had never felt before in my life. I felt calmness all throughout my mind and body. I had been a smoker and had no desire to smoke. It was like I'd never been a smoker. The nurses asked me if I wanted a nicotine patch, and I said, "Nope, I don't need one." The kids went on and on about how afraid they were for me, and I kept telling them I was fine and would be fine. I didn't tell them Jesus had sent me back because I was still in shock over the whole experience. I absolutely knew in my heart and brain that I would be fine. But the strangest thing was, as they were gathered around my bed over the next 3 days that I was in intensive care unit, there was another guest in the room. A man had come in dressed in jeans, biker boots, and a t-shirt. He was around my age, close to 60. He brought a stepladder through the door and moved it to the wall. Then he stood up on it and began writing sentences across the wall with a pencil. He would write a little bit, stop, think about what he wrote, and then he would continue writing. This went on for 3 days, and I couldn't see what he was writing, but I felt that he was writing. He was preparing to die, and as writing down every decision that he had made in his life. He was analyzing them to determine if he had made the right decision, since he didn't think he was worthy of going to heaven. On the third day, he nodded his head. He was satisfied with all the life decisions he'd made. He smiled, took the ladder, and walked through the door. As he walked through, I noticed the room that mine connected to wasn't used as a hospital room with a bed. It had tables and a chair in it. I couldn't understand why doctors, nurses, my family, or the cleaning people didn't pay any attention to this man. I saw his face clearly as well as his clothes. He's just another person in my room. Everyone kept asking me why I was staring at the wall, and I couldn't answer them. 4 days later, before I left the room, I asked the nurse why they didn't use the room attached to mine as a hospital room. She looked at me oddly and said they used that as a break room, and it had been a regular hospital room. My son asked me how I could have known that, and I told him about the man in the room who was writing on the wall. I told him that when the man opened the door to that room, I was able to see inside. My son got very upset with me and told me that I couldn't talk about it anymore. He thought I had an ICU psychosis. He told me to keep my mouth shut or they may put me in the psych ward. I took his advice and was later sent home. I read our local newspaper obituaries every day. When I went home, I looked online at the obituaries. I saw the man that was in my room, and he was in the obituaries with his picture. It said he was a biker and had died in our other area hospital from a motorcycle accident. He died on the 3rd day that I was in ICU. I was absolutely stunned. I have felt a strong connection to the other side since I had my NDE. It's like I have one foot in heaven and one here on earth. I don't get rattled by much anymore, and I don't tolerate people that waste my time with foolishness. I don't know why I was sent back by Jesus. I certainly haven't contributed much since my hospital stay. After my heart attack, and for a few months after, I had very bad memory issues. I would go to start a sentence with someone and couldn't find the words to say. I was so upset by this and asked the cardiologist what was wrong. He said that I'd lost oxygen and blood to my brain when I was unable to breathe. He said that's what caused the memory loss, and I should start to regain my memory. It took about 3 months, but I finally got my memory back. That said, the only memory I retained, crystal clear, was my trip to see Jesus and my dad and the man in the hospital room. I've wondered over the past few years why I didn't have a classic NDE, with a tunnel, fields of flowers, and a bright light, etc. After 4 years, I've come to realize that as someone of Italian descent, everything revolves around the table and food. We break bread and we talk and we laugh and we cry around the table. As for Jesus putting his palm up to me like giving me the hand, he knew that was something that I'd understand. I had used the hand to let my kids know I'd had enough. As for telling me, not now, go back, he knew I'd argue to stay, especially when I saw my father. Jesus was firm enough in this that I didn't argue and went straight back to my body like a child. Since this experience, I've had extremely vivid dreams that consisted of very detailed conversations with my deceased father, grandmother, and my yet-to-be-born grandson. These are much different than a normal dream. I've received important information and have not forgotten these conversations as I would if it were a regular dream. I've spent the past 4.5 years since this experience, pondering it over from every angle. I was happy that I had the experience, and anxious that I wasn't accepted into heaven. I still worry if this means that I won't be able to join my Father and Jesus in heaven when I come to my final day on earth. Thank you for listening. If you have had an NDE that you would like to share, please email us at travelsinthespace